On this episode of AV Week, communicating with your customers, MSPs in AV, and power and chip issues in the AV supply chain. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 530, recorded Friday, October 15th, 2021. Transparency.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Atlona, the go-to provider for AV signal distribution and control in corporate, higher education, and residential spaces.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, Heather Sidorowicz, Southtown AV, and proud Buffalo Bills fan. Welcome, ma'am.
So proud. So proud. Can we just talk about that the whole time instead?
We could, except they beat the Bears, so no. Yeah.
If you've been watching lately, they've been beating everyone.
They have been beating everybody, yes, indeed.
But thrilled to be here, so thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Also with us, brand spanking new job since the last time we talked to them. Actually, the last time I had Nairi on, it was my 500th episode. And God, poor Nairi, I hadn't had him on in a while, and the way I do it, I'm like, okay, we haven't had you on in 6-9 months, sometimes a year, and I had him scheduled, and then God love him, Mitchell, my fantastic producer, was like, I'm going to surprise Tim and have all these other people join. So, Nairi, I'm glad that you're here on an episode that is not my 500th. So welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. So glad to be here.
And he is actually with Under Armour now, so congratulations to that.
Yep, thank you.
Also with us, somebody else who has a new job that we haven't talked to, I don't think officially since then. Tom LeBlanc from NSCA. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here.
Absolutely. And last but not least, she doesn't have a new job, but she's still fantastic. Corey Schaefer from QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Good to be here and great crew today.
Absolutely. So first story this week comes from everybody. Just the article we're using is from The Verge, but more supply chain issues. This is according to The Verge. Apple can't get enough chips for the iPhone 13. They're reducing their plan to make 90 million down to 80 million phones. It's about a 10%, 11% reduction. However, the part that makes this interesting for the AV side is the chips they get are from Broadcom and Texas Instrument. If you didn't know this, a lot of chips that go into AV gear comes from Broadcom and Texas Instrument. So not only is it impacting AV, it's also impacting, the world's most valuable company. In addition to that, news coming out of China this week is that the country is facing a countrywide power shortage. The causes include China trying to cut back on coal usage ahead of 2060 carbon neutral footprint, and demand for that power now that factories are coming back online. To deal with this, China is implementing times of blackouts throughout the country, including the main manufacturing hubs that will idle much needed factories. That's right. Not only are we having supply chain issues, now China can't make the stuff that we need them to make to get the stuff. Mitchell, I want you to point a recent interview I actually did with QSC's Anna Jontis and Frank West about the impact of chip shortages on AV. Nairi, we are going to start with you on this. What does this do to folks like you that are on the front lines, the AV users that are in companies or in higher education? What does it do to forecast, and what does it do to kind of planned upgrades as you're looking ahead to 2022?
We have to get our crystal ball out and predict the future a little bit better than we probably have in the past. I mean, I think I can speak for every technology manager around the country, if not around the world, is that we're always fighting for money and budgets and the resources that we need to do our jobs and make our organization successful. And this is just going to make it harder. I do know that when you talk about budget cycles, that tends to be the biggest challenge that we have, because especially around the higher ed and your government folks. They are locked into certain budget cycles. They have to spend money by a certain date or else they lose it. In a corporate environment, some environments operate like that, some don't. And so what it's going to breed are some different conversations around how we manage that budget cycle, how we account for these projects and things that we have purchased, so that we can reasonably plan for implementing these solutions, buying these technologies, doing these technology refreshes, and so forth and so on. But long story short, it's going to make everybody's life harder, and we'll just have to deal with it. And there's nothing we can do about it.
So Heather, everybody wants a client like Nairi because he gets it, right? However, not everybody has clients like Nairi. So how do you communicate this? How do you translate this to clients, whether it's resi clients or commercial clients that are looking ahead and going, okay, our folks are coming back to the office eventually, right? There are some folks who have kind of staggered that and readjusted those return plans. But how do you communicate this to clients when sometimes, clients can be persnickety and say, well, if you can't get it to me, I'll just go down the street to your competitor? How do you say we're all in the same boat?
Three things: transparency, transparency, and transparency. And what I mean is that it's the very first conversation I'm having now. So if I meet with the client tomorrow, not Saturday, Monday, I would say up front, if you book today, we're looking into 2022 or further. So it's about being honest and transparent with the clients, and most understand, because most have bought a couch in the last 6 months and know that they're not getting that till 2022. People actually have been a little bit more understanding, not everybody, but most have, because they get it. We also have been working on phasing projects. So what we've been doing is maybe we can do part of it now and part of it later. So we might be able to source enough to do part of the project, and then we'll let you know when the rest comes in. So it's about creativity. My new business plan is outwit, outlast, and outplay.
Never mind. That's a Survivor. Took me a second.
Look, I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, and it's been a while since I've watched Survivor too. I'll be completely honest.
No, I haven't watched it in maybe 10 years. But the concept is, my point is, everyone that came out with their 5-year plans, they were wrong. So we have to be really agile. We're facing new problems than ever before, and we're also busier than we've ever been before. And for the client that does say, oh, great, I'm going to go down the street and get it for the other guy, good luck. Because even if that guy says, we can do it, we all know that they can't, and therefore they'll be back. We've seen multiple clients say, go one direction, and then a few years later, they come back.
Yeah, Heather, it's about what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, right? And it's just important to be as transparent as possible. And another element, Tim, that I'm wondering how people are feeling about this, but it's the cost to bring in the equipment. So when you can get it, the costs have skyrocketed for us, right? So I watch and, I see all this chatter on all these different boards where, end users might be frustrated about lead times, but they're also frustrated about additional costs and kind of saying, hey, when freight costs go down, I bet they're never going to lower their price, et cetera. But what is not seen is the costs that have to be absorbed. So I was talking to a manufacturer yesterday, a container that they used to bring in for $1,800, they just got hit with $35,000 to bring it in. Well, so this is just such a moving target. So the supply chain issues are beyond just the chips, right? It's just, yeah.
And I want people to understand what you just said, Corey, because I've had the same conversations with several manufacturers, and what she's talking about is the shipping containers that you're seeing. New York Times has a great article today, and actually their daily podcast. It's called The Daily. Covers it. We're recording this on Friday the 15th. Covers the chip issues. Those containers on those container ships used to be $1,500 to $2,500 to get one of those empty containers. Now they're $30,000 to $35,000, sometimes $40,000. I'm not good at math, right? Understand that, but that's a big increase, like really big, like stupid big, right? And Corey's right. A lot of times, some folks can absorb those. A lot of folks can't, though. So if you can get the container ship, and that's a whole nother problem to have, if you can get the container, then you're paying, X amount times more. So there are a lot of issues, and yes, we're all getting hit, but I think Heather's right. They're seeing, our clients are seeing this in other areas. Tom, you guys NSCA just had Pivot to Profit, which we'll talk about that in a second. But you had a lot of integrators together. You had a lot of manufacturers together. What were you hearing when it comes to kind of both sides of those and how they're handling, relaying this to the clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, the integrators and the manufacturers were, kind of feeling like they're in it together. It kind of like Heather was alluded to. Everybody's used to, ordering a couch and realizing that you can't get it when you want to get it. So it's not like anybody's being introduced to this concept. So there is that opportunity to, kind of join together in a joint challenge. And I think I did see that, in the networking at Pivot to Profit a couple weeks ago. But I keep thinking about it like, look at Heather's perspective, an integration company, any integration company out there that's been battling, through the pandemic and, starting to see projects come back and starting to see pipelines get filled. And then it's this thing, it's this supply chain thing that just kind of trips them up from, being able to gather some momentum, in their business. And it's so incredibly frustrating. The supply chain is probably one or two in terms of being the top issue that integrators, talk to us about at NSCA. It's such a big point of frustration right now. There's nothing you can do about it. There really isn't right now, other than to, handle things as well as you can within what you can control. And so much of it comes down to the quote that, Heather said, transparency, transparency, transparency. I think, just to kind of play off that a little bit, I think one of the tricky things is you got to make sure that within your team, everybody's on board with that transparency. Because I think you sometimes get like a salesperson or somebody like that who just wants to make the client feel good about how the project's going to go. And then they have to, it's not a, tell them what they want to hear now and apologize later situation, because there's too much at stake.
Yeah, but Tony, if you were running your company like that anyway, you were already in trouble. That's one of those stories of it's going to come back to bite you. Go to the boot, it's karma. So you should have never been that person that was saying something that wasn't true up front. And now I think that it's just even more important to be out there and honest with these. And we've said to people, hey, just because beyond just getting it, now even shipping has changed. Shipping's taking longer. Just because something says it will be there on Tuesday doesn't necessarily mean it will be there on Tuesday. So if you're not upfront with your clients saying, I understand you reserved this conference room and there's 12 doctors that meet in here and they're just ready to go, but this is what it says and we'll do our best. And if you start to play with that and slide things under, I just think you're going to end up in a whole heap of trouble.
I want to end this by asking Nairi a question here, and I'm not expecting Nairi for you to speak to all AV users, right? Don't understand, but for you personally, because one of the things that Heather alluded to is kind of these partial completions, right? What does that do for you, if anything, right? Does it help if Heather calls up and says, you know what, Nairi, we can get you 75% of the way there on that conference room that your doctors meet on a regular basis? Does that help? Does that hurt? Does it excite you in any way, shape, or form? Or are you like, you know what, I love it, but I need all or nothing, right? We gotta finish it all or nothing.
Well, for me, I just got to keep our accountants happy. That's really what it boils down to me. And a lot of times that's it's all dependent on your respective budget cycles, because I've done it all of those ways in the past. And it just depends on what they're comfortable with, how well of a relationship you have with that vendor or manufacturer to deliver when they said they were going to deliver, and not stiff you, after you've, committed these funds or whatever. Because in those situations, we have to pay up front on the promise that you're going to deliver product at some point. You can pick that date, but at some point you need to give us what we paid for. And if you've got a good enough relationship, if it's a vendor that you've done business with for a long time, that's really easy. If you are a younger company and you don't kind of have those relationships, or you don't have someone on staff that does, that's a tough ask, especially when you may be receiving some pressure from your business side, your core business side, and the products and services that you are delivering and expecting receipts on as well. So, for me, it's making sure that our accounts payable and accounts receivable people, I'm not causing them extra stress, because that just makes it harder for me to buy stuff in the future.
Thanks so much for watching this first segment of AV Week. To check out the rest of the episode for free, click on the link below or go by the website, avnation.tv. It's avnation.tv.